Hello Internet, my name is Vic. I've officially come out of the closet 3 times. Happy National Coming Out Day. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about coming out and the fear surrounding coming out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Vic. I am 28 years old. Editing Vic here. You're not 28, you fucking idiot. You're 29. Like you just had a birthday. Carry on. And I'm a bisexual trans man. The very first thing I want to say is sexuality and gender are 2 totally separate things. I don't know why people still like to lump them together, but they are not the same. They are different. Sexuality is preference in who you are attracted to. And gender is how you identify as a person and an individual. They're separate. Trans is not a third gender. I don't believe that. Your gender identity is totally different than your sexual identity. I don't know how many times I could reiterate this point because a lot of people still don't quite seem to grasp it or understand why it's separate, but it is. I grew up in a church setting, Southern Baptist style, so it's very homophobic. Growing up in that kind of household, I was very scared to come out at all. But I think the big thing back then when I came out, I didn't consider, I for sure was not comfortable in my body with my gender that I was assigned at birth. I was not comfortable with that. I didn't in any way want to exude being feminine because I didn't connect with it. My brain just did not mentally connect with being feminine or a woman. Out of fear, I don't want to say fear of men, but out of fear of that stereotypical if you're a woman, you need to marry a man and start a family and all this shit that I'd grown up learning that I had to do, that was an obligation that was just passed on to me because I was born and assigned female at birth. And obviously the world has progressed since then, but the 90s were a very gender stereotypical man does this, woman does this, woman has to submit to man, which is also a very biblical viewpoint. There was a fear of coming out because there's the heteronormative, there's the this is how shit's supposed to be, this is your blueprint for life, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and people just follow it blindly. They just follow it and they're just yeah, sure, that's how it is, that's how it's supposed to be. When I was coming up, it was nobody really questioned why or what. Why do we have to do it this way? I was afraid to come out, and when I did, I received extreme backlash. I'm not saying this is going to happen to everyone, but when I came out, my family, flipped the fuck out on me. I had 2 classes left of my senior year. It was my last semester. My parents just decided, you know what? We think that your interest in women sexually is because of the school you're attending. Which doesn't make any fucking sense. So they pulled me out of school. They cut off all communication with my friends. They took the keys to my car, and they basically were we're gonna make sure that you're we're not fucking up with this one, because I'm an only child. So I guess they were flipping out because they wanted these things for me that I didn't even want, and they wanted to make sure that it was gonna happen. I actually had to attend one of those conversion churches where you go to the church and the preacher or whatever used to be gay and he prayed the gay away and now he likes women. And it really put a wedge between me and my parents. It was just so discouraging to know that my family was literally going to look at me different because of who I was attracted to. I could help that. When I was in my 20s, my early 20s, I learned more about things in the LGBT community. I learned that, transitioning is a thing. I was really interested in gender fluidity, which they don't even, nobody even calls it that now. It's non-binary. Now, that's the thing about gender fluid. It's more about expression than, actual, gender identity. That's why it was really confusing for me at the time. And at the time, I actually, as you can see, right here, I made a video coming out as gender fluid.
Just want to get this out of the way. I've determined something personally for me. I'm gender fluid. More on the masculine side, so I do like to portray my masculine side a lot. So my name is Vic. I'm gonna go by Vic from now on.
Now, obviously, at the time, I didn't want to be perceived as anything. I didn't care about which gender I was perceived as. I was just like, I'm just a person. I identified as gender fluid for like, I don't even know if it was a full year. I started doing more research into like transgender, and I started learning about hormones and how you could get on like hormone therapy, and I started learning about the surgeries that you can have, and I just was really interested in learning more because this was all like crazy to me how you could do this. It wasn't even like a year later I came out as trans.
My name is Vic. I'm 23 years old and I am transgender. Hopefully I will be getting on testosterone soonish. I'm not gender fluid. I'm not lesbian. I'm a male. I don't like to put labels on things except for me. I want to have, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is how I identify. And I wanted that stability in my life. And finally, I've made it public to my family. It took a lot of courage, but it was a post that was talking about how I am a male and I identify as a male. And if you have a problem with that, you can unfriend me, you can un this and that. So since then, it's been a journey already, and I haven't even started testosterone. I will be going to a gender therapist soon to get on testosterone, and you best believe that I'm going to be recording that process.
Coming out as trans was a whole different set of like hurdles that I had to go through. I didn't start medically transitioning until November of 2018, but I came out as trans in March of 2015. So that's a big like gap. But that gap happened because I had a lot of fear behind testosterone. There was a lot that I didn't know yet. And it's not that I was afraid of like not wanting to transition after starting hormones and being like, this isn't for me. It wasn't that. It was more of a fear of like, what if I start to transition and I get like in there and then I lose the ability to access testosterone, or I no longer can afford it? Because at the time, and it still is relatively expensive, but it's not that bad. But at the time, I thought testosterone was just this unattainable magic thing that I just could not get. And I also wanted to go through gender therapy, which is something that is recommended in general, not just to get hormones. I found out further down the line that I didn't actually require, because I went to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood offers hormone replacement therapy, and I didn't know that at the time. I started doing gender therapy, and it was good, but then I started getting like really depressed, and I think I lost my job, at the time, so I couldn't afford my sessions anymore. I gave up, and I started going through like a spiraling depression because I was a heavy advocate for being trans, and I really wanted people to know that I was trans, and so I was just putting out content on YouTube. I was constantly talking to my coworkers about it and trying to get them on board with using the right pronouns, and it was just this big sloppy mess. I was in a relationship at the time where like my identity was invalidated constantly because the person was just, they didn't give a fuck about shit that made me dysphoric, and I would even tell them like, hey, don't touch me there, or don't talk about this, or don't like acknowledge this because I'm uncomfortable with it, and they would still continue to do so. So it just put me in like a really like shitty headspace. The fact that somebody can shit on somebody else's identity because they're uncomfortable makes no fucking sense to me. If you're not comfortable with it, then just fucking don't do it. Coming out can be extremely terrifying because you don't know what you're gonna get. That brings me to some pointers on coming out from somebody who's had to come out a couple times. So I live public. My transition is public, and that's my choice. Oh, I also quit smoking cigarettes. So there's a thing. I haven't had a cigarette in like 5 days, I think, or 6. Just because you come out as one thing doesn't mean you're going to be that one thing forever. Sexuality is fluid. It fluctuates. Your preference and your taste in people may change. Here's a good example. You could be attracted to men when you're younger, and then when you get older, you realize men ain't shit, and women are beautiful, and then you're like, oh, fuck, you know. But you can't help who you're attracted to. You can't control that, but it can change. So sexuality is fluid. I've always thought that. For a period of time, I was straight because I'm a man, identifying as a man, and I like women, and that's the opposite sex, so therefore straight. Wow, what a concept. A lot of people think that if you start taking testosterone, you'll be gay. Now, that's not to say that that hasn't happened, because there are people who have started testosterone and then come out as gay and been like, yeah, guess what, I'm gay, I like men. Nothing wrong with that. But the stigma was there, that it was like, okay, you have to marry a man. You have to be with a man. Man. And that was like so pushed on me. I think I was scared to admit to being attracted to men. Have I ever dated a man? No. But I'm still attracted to men. And I think there was also a period of time where I was confused as to whether or not I was attracted to men or I wanted to look like that guy that I was attracted to. Turns out it's a little bit of both. I still don't know if I would date a man. Like, I think if the connection was there, I might could. But, like, I never have. And I don't know if I would know how to act if I dated a guy. Because I think a lot of it goes into play with, like, my personal trauma and my personal experience with men is not that great. So, like, I think it would be a sense of vulnerability if I were to get in a relationship with a man, and I don't know if I'm ready to, like, face that yet, because trauma. So I think that's a lot of the stigma that I had in my brain, and I was just, like, afraid to admit to being attracted to men because I didn't want people to perceive me as someone who's just confused. I think that's the only main reason I never, like, got around to dating men, which obviously now I'm in a happy, healthy relationship, so I'm not even thinking about dating other people. But I think, you know, if anyone were to ask me, well, you claim to be bisexual, but you've never been in a relationship with a man, that doesn't mean shit. I'm still attracted to men. I'm attracted to both men and women. That's what bisexuality is. And bisexuality does include trans people because, again, I'm going to say it one more time. You're going to get fucking tired of hearing me say it, but I stand by this shit. Trans is not a third gender. You're transitioning from one to the other. So, once again, bisexuality is very valid. If anything, pansexuality is the one that's questionable because it's like you're trying to erase shit. So when you come out, you want to make sure that the people you come out to understand that that's not the final, that's not it. You could possibly change in the future. Change is bound to happen. So the people you come out to really need to be educated. And if they're not, it's okay to come out to them, but just be careful who you come out to, you know? You want to surround yourself with a support system that you know is not going to be a negative influence on you or isn't going to bash you or belittle you for having bouts of confusion. And it is difficult to figure yourself out. You know, a lot of people don't know where they're going or what they're doing half the time, so I don't understand why people are so adamant about being negative about somebody, like, trying to figure out their sexuality, because that's just a part of your life. A big tip is your family is not always going to be so welcoming and accepting. I know it's insane. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that there are people who would disown their children for, you know, identifying with a sexuality that is outside of their realm of understanding, or same thing with, like, gender. I will never understand how you can spend all that time, dedication, love, money into a child, and then the second that they're like, I think, you're like, no, not in this household. And there's people who will announce that they'll beat the shit out of their kid for being gay. Coming out it can be treacherous and dangerous because you don't know. So it's very important to, like, you know, kind of do your research, figure out people's points of views on things before you just, like, blatantly outright be like, hey, guess what? As far as, like, me, when I came out as trans, I was 23 years old. And I wasn't taking shit from anybody at that time in my life, and I'm not. I mean, yes, I struggled, and I had a lot of, like, dysphoric moments, and I broke down a lot about, like, why can't they just accept me? You know, I did have a lot of those moments, but I think since being on hormones, I've gotten more of a clear head and a clear conscience and understanding that not everyone is going to be on board with it. That's 23 years of my life that my family and friends and everyone knew me as she. So it's taking myself out of that box and being like, hey, guess what? Nope, just kidding. Like, it takes time, but you can see the difference between somebody genuinely trying and somebody who just doesn't give a fuck and wants to hurt you or doesn't want to try. There's people who have told me, I can't make this shit up, there's people who have told me that they'll never see me as that. And do you know what I did? I cut them off. And it's upsetting, it hurts, and sometimes it's really hard because you have to cut off a lot of people. But there is nothing that binds you to that person. And some people may be like, oh, well, they're blood. You can't just cut off your family. They were there for you when no one else was. Why aren't they there for me now? You can cut people off. You can make your own family. I think that's the beauty of, being in the LGBTQIA plus community, is we are a community. There's a lot of internalized transphobia and internalized homophobia in there. And there's a lot that needs to be worked on in that community. Yes, I'm not saying we're perfect, but it's a community. And there are a lot of loving and caring and supporting people in it. And you gotta find those. You gotta navigate through that. For me, when I came out, I didn't give a fuck what other people wanted to say about it. I was gonna fight to get that respect. And it took a while. Some people came around, some people did not. And I'm not gonna sit around and waste my time trying to appease them when this is my life. I know in my head, and I know in my heart how I identify. If I could choose, I would have been born in the correct body, and I wouldn't have to go through all this shit and jump through all these hoops just to be my authentic self. Another thing that you have to be careful about coming out with is at places of employment. A lot of companies these days are trying to be more inclusive of their staff and their employees, but there are still a lot of homophobic, transphobic companies that will fire you for those things. The company might protect them, but the people that work there are still very discriminatory and just assholes. I've seen a lot of it in a lot of companies I've worked for, and it's bad. So you have to be careful. I want to do some research on the company you work for. I know a lot of people are stealth where they work because of that, and just trans in their own personal time, but stealth at work. I'm comfortable with coming out. I'm comfortable with having my transition public on the internet for other people to see and hopefully help them through their journey and their transition, because I didn't have all the resources that people have today. And I always wanted to be one of those resources because I never wanted anyone to struggle with that shit like I did, because it was rough. But here I am, and I made it, and it's worth it. And you're gonna find where you fit. You're gonna find your created family. You're gonna find your friends and people who support you. You're gonna find it, and it's out there. Just don't be discouraged if you don't find it right away, or if your family isn't immediately like, oh yeah, cool, I'm on board with it. Because that's not always the case. Be out and be proud. I know I am. Happy National Coming Out Day. There is something that I want to talk about at the very end of this video. One of my next goals in my medical transition is to one of two things: to legally change my name and to get top surgery. And I've been wanting top surgery for a long time. And even before I came out as trans, I've been uncomfortable with my chest. I don't like asking people for money, ever, at all. But my girlfriend actually made a GoFundMe for my top surgery out of the kindness of her heart. She's great. She's amazing. I love her. So I'm going to put a link to that below in the description. If you could donate, that would be amazing. Even $1 would help. We've still got quite a ways to go, but we've actually raised I think about $150, which is awesome, amazing. I never thought anybody would want to give money towards something like that for me. It's just helping me become my authentic self. Obviously, the money will not be used for anything but things to help prepare us for surgery, or me for surgery, and the surgery itself, and the aftercare, and I think she has a little bit more in there as well for rent for a month while I'm out of commission, because obviously I can't work after having top surgery. I have to rest. That's another reason that I quit smoking cigarettes, because they say a lot of top surgeons won't do top surgery if you smoke cigarettes, because something with the anesthesia or something like that. And it helps you heal faster if you're not smoking. So that's why I'm making it a huge effort to just quit smoking nicotine altogether, because it is detrimental to my health. Steps. But yes, I will leave the link to the GoFundMe below. Even if you can't donate, sharing it would be awesome. If you could just spread the word and let people know that, hey, it's there. Anyway, anything helps spreading it, or just donating, or even like if you can't donate now but you could donate later, that'd be cool. Like whatever you want to do. Like I hate asking for money. I'm not that kind of person, and I would never like use it for anything else, or be false about where I use. I'm going to show all the receipts, everything. You don't have to worry about that. If you have any questions about coming out, or any concerns, or you want any resources, or anything like more touched on in this video than I did, because I kind of rushed through a lot of it, let me know in the comments below. I might make a separate video for like whatever, if I need to, or we can discuss things further. So thank you for watching, and stay safe out there, and happy National Coming Out Day.